I am Mike Bondi, Comtech CFO. Before turning it over to Michael Porcelain, our President and COO, for a 15 to 20 minute overview of Comtech, I would like to quickly highlight three things. Unless stated, all information is as of December 9th, when we last released earnings. 2, I urge you to read the cautionary language on slide 2, and Appendix 1 and 2 of the slide deck has more financial information for your reference. So with that, I'd like to now introduce our President and COO, Michael Porcelain.
Thanks, Mike, and good afternoon, everybody, and I hope everyone is safe where they are. As you can see, Mike and I are practicing proper social distancing. He's in his office, and I'm in my attic office here on Long Island, and we rotate every other day. So we thank you for taking this time here this afternoon to learn more about Comtech. I'll start with a broad overview, and then I'll dig down into certain topics. And as Mike had said, please feel free to send any Q&As along the way, and we'll respond to them as we get them. So Comtech, we are a market leader in what we refer to as the growing secure wireless communication markets. As I'll talk about, this involves everything from satellites on the ground, ground station equipment on the ground, to troposcatter equipment and over-the-horizon equipment, and we provide them through various applications. Comtech really is known for solving complex problems. Certainly when you think of a technology company, you can start off thinking about a consumer side, companies like Apple or whatever, but we really sell to enterprises, large companies around the world that have sophisticated issues, governments around the world, and military customers who have a very specific need that we could help them solve. And Comtech's been around since 1967, and we've been a public company since the early 1970s, and really are well respected in our field. We generate profits and cash flows. Sometimes you see technology companies, they don't do that. I like to say we're a real company. We pay dividends, and we paid 42 quarters in a row, and continue to believe that that's a great way to return part of our profits and operating cash flow to our shareholders. We have strong visibility into our future revenues. So despite the coronavirus, and I'll talk through it, things are looking pretty good for us. We have long-term fundamentals and market growth, market demand that we believe will drive future revenues. And at the end of the day, we feel pretty good about the future. Let me talk a little bit about the growing markets that we participate in. I'd like to summarize them in three different categories. The first is satellite cellular backhaul. And, when you think of satellites, everybody's first reaction is a satellite in the sky. Well, we don't make satellites in the sky, but we make the satellite equipment that's on the ground that communicates to the satellite on the sky. And we're not sure exactly what the percentage is, but I would say maybe 60% or so of our satellite equipment revenue is used in cellular backhaul applications. And what this means is if you're a mobile operator anywhere around the world and you want to transmit traffic from a large city to a smaller city, or transmit information from a main city to part of the jungle, or across islands, or through mountains, you need to use satellite equipment to backhaul that traffic, because it's a lot less expensive than it would be to run fiber or regular terrestrial towers. So satellite cellular backhaul is an important part of the cellular networks. And as we go from 4G to 5G around the world, it's going to open up tremendous opportunities, because there's going to be more data, more information, and more need to have satellite cellular backhaul. So, as we look forward to this trend that we expect to occur over the next few years, we believe that's going to help lift the top and bottom lines of the company. The next market trend that we participate in is what I call next generation 911 upgrades. Comtech is a leader in 911 systems. We provide call handling software, which is the product that is used by telephone operators when they pick up the phone, and we actually provide the infrastructure. In simple terms, you can think about it as being 911 on the cloud. States and local municipalities pay us money to maintain, operate, and upgrade their 911 systems so they can do things for providing information to responders. Most of the systems today that exist in the United States and elsewhere in the world are old, and they need to be upgraded to handle video and text messaging. The third market trend that we see, I would define it as military communication modernization. Sometimes you could even just say government communication modernization. And sometimes, you have state embassies or foreign governments that, not necessarily for the military, but they have needs to communicate. Comtech has a specialty here in what we call electronic warfare equipment and high bandwidth battlefield communications. So again, if you are a government customer and you're in the hostile land or in different land than your hometown, so to speak, you don't have control over the terrestrial tower, so you will need to set up temporary communication systems, which is what we can do, and we usually do that through our satellite ground station equipment that we provide, as well as our over-the-horizon microwave equipment, including our new product called the Comet, which I'll also talk about. Adding this up and taking a step back, there's a huge growth expected in the satellite constellations around the world. You can think about them by large billionaires who are putting tremendous investments into the launching of what they call LEO and MEO satellite constellations to provide growth data capacity for customers around the world. And again, we don't provide the satellites that go up in the sky, but we provide the satellite ground station equipment that goes on the ground. So once those satellites go up in the sky, it will require significant investment in ground infrastructure, and we believe that we will be poised to benefit from that trend. In the last few years, we've really transformed the company into what I call a wireless leader. Tremendous investments in research and development, small tactical tuck-on acquisitions we made in the last few years. But just from a brief sort of taking a step back, if you look at our composition of our fiscal 2020 revenues, over 60% of our revenues did not exist in fiscal 2015. This just shows you that we have a revamped product line, and it's we don't have necessarily products that are in the lab that are waiting for somebody to buy. We're out there selling them. They're being accepted by our customers, and we're executing. In 2020, we did $616 million of revenue, over 77 million of adjusted EBITDA, and over $1 billion worth of visibility in terms of our backlog and existing contracts. We have top-tier engineering talent in our space. Over 400 engineering professionals work for the company. And again, this is, we're a small company, no doubt, and we have a market niche. And so it's very difficult for somebody to get into this space with the talent that we have. Again, true market leadership positions in the satellite ground station equipment, number one, number two across the board. And let me give you a sense for how the company has looked like financially over the last couple of years. Actually, before I do that, let me just show you again the management team here that I referred to. Sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I think this says it all. You could see how we're organized. Each one of our product line managers, so to speak, are truly presidents. We don't call them general managers. They really have a good amount of accountability towards their product, which enables them to be close to the customer. And again, they're supported by an excellent management team that could help them grow their business. Back to the financials here. Again, you can see going from 2016 to 2019, before the impact of COVID, the company was tracking at a revenue growth rate more than 15% a year. On the bottom line, we were tracking more than 20% a year on a compound annual basis. And things were looking pretty good. And unfortunately, as everybody knows, last January, when the coronavirus hit China, we were one of the first companies in the world to actually publicly announce that we were seeing some things in China that didn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense to us. And we've been pretty much impacted since last January, February. So our fiscal 2020, you can see that, we went to 617 million of revenue. We did, like every company did, cost reductions and so forth to sort of reshape the company from a cost structure to align with the current revenue. And as we sit back, and we announced it in September and we reiterated it in December, we think we're past the worst of the coronavirus. You can see that on the top line, where we're now expecting to show some revenue growth compared to last year. We think that fiscal year 2021, we're going to be about 620 million. And, we're going to be right around $75 million is the midpoint of our guidance that we gave back in December. If things start to improve better and faster than what we're thinking, we could probably do better than this. But, certainly as the vaccine is adopted, we think we're on track to a very, very good fiscal year 2022. We do, if you look at our numbers here and read our 10K and some of our other investor presentations, you'll see that we report our operations in two segments. The commercial solutions segment, which compromises somewhere between 50 and 60% of our annual revenues, and our government solutions segment, which fills in the rest. We break it out this way because on the commercial side, we're really selling hardware or software, more simplified products that, are ready to go and are more turnkey. Certainly our 911 products are complicated pieces of software and hardware, but they're more of a commercial sale. And so that business all sits in the commercial solutions segment, which, as you can see, on here, as you look at the adjusted EBITDA margin, it's over 15% adjusted EBITDA margin. In the past, as volume gets high, we've shown 19 to 20% adjusted EBITDA margin, which is where we'd like to get the company back to as our revenue increases. But that gives you a sense of the profit margin and the revenue composition for the commercial solutions segment, which includes our satellite ground station and our 911 products. On the government side, you can see, although it's got a good chunk of revenue, our margin here is lower. It's about 10% adjusted EBITDA margin, and it certainly makes sense. A lot of these contracts are cost plus contracts. So with the government, U.S. government, for instance, will pay us our actual cost plus 3-4% margin. In these cases, we're doing stuff like field support operations for satellite networks. We're doing installations, customer maintenance, setting up and dismantling various satellite network or communication systems on behalf of governments. And again, here, the U.S. government represents about 65% of this segment's revenue. But you could also see we have 20% international customers, and some of them are companies like JAXA, the Japanese Space Agency, for example, where we've been doing work for more than 10 years. And even on the domestic side, where we do work for, let's say, Boeing, where we help them manage supply chain operations related to satellite equipment. So again, pretty diverse set of product portfolio, but with a common grouping that it relates to secure wireless technology communication. Again, some of the more specific products and I call it pictures that go along with the words that I've been describing. You can see our high-performance satellite modems in the top left-hand corner. These are sort of similar, from a simplistic set of view, like a Dell PC server. These goes in racks of equipment that are located behind the antenna, along with amplifiers. And there again, we have a picture of our solid-state and traveling wave tube amplifiers. And all of this satellite ground station equipment enables the communication to the satellite. Here, we talked about the growth in cellular backhaul that is expected over the next few years. We also have the launching of the high throughput satellites. And something I didn't mention earlier, but it's just really important, is the upgrade to high definition and 4K television broadcasting that's occurring around the world. This type of communication is over satellite, and the more you broadcast in high definition and 4K, the more you need satellite ground station equipment to be updated to handle this capacity. And I'm sure if you turn on your own TV set in your home, you will find that even today, there's not a lot of 4K broadcasting done, so there's certainly room for growth. The other piece of our segment is what I call our 911 or our public safety and location technology. Here we are only one of 2 companies in the United States that provide 911 routing. Basically, this is when you pick up your cell phone, you call 911, 50% plus of those calls route over a Comtech network. Pretty simple. We provide what I call unique location identification to the PSAP. Those are what they call public service answering points, where it provides specific location. Probably the #1 piece of information that a 911 operator needs is your location. And I sometimes use this phrase, it's not like an Uber driver that's trying to deliver your food to your house, or DoorDash, whoever you may use, and they can stop and they could look at, which address, just to kind of make sure. First responders need very precise location information. And so I use the phrase, when close enough is not good enough. We really try to provide the most accurate information possible to first responders, and that's what the state and local municipalities demand, but also what the law demands. When you're in a skyscraper, are you on the 30th floor or are you on the 50th floor? Those things matter. Are you in a closet? Are you hiding underneath the desk? We have the information that we could provide to first responders when you call 911, and so that's a sort of a system that we provide. The second piece, again, is the next generation piece. Today, around the United States, mostly, you cannot send a text message to 911. You can't send a picture to 911. You can't send a video to 911. Although you could do it on Facebook, you can't yet do it on 911. The systems are old, they're antiquated, they need to be updated to handle that type of information, as well as secure evidence and proper identification of who's sending what. So that's what I call the next generation 911 system. And today, we are clearly the #1 provider in the United States. We've won the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We've won the state of South Carolina, and we won the state of Washington. These are, multi-million-dollar contracts that last between 5 and 10 years. And there's a number of opportunities both at the state level and at the city and local municipality level that we are, bidding our services for. All in all, these are great contracts. They're a little bit lumpy, difficult to predict the timing of, but when we get them, we think that we're going to have them for a number of years. Now let me talk about the government side of the business. Here again, picture sometimes says 1,000 words. What do? You can see in almost all of these pictures, it's really satellite equipment or troposcatter equipment, sometimes referred to as over-the-horizon microwave systems. Again, if you're a special operator, a special operational troop person, and you're out in the field and you have a special, certain classified operation, we will actually take the equipment, we will set it up, we'll actually sometimes be next to the soldier in the field, and when that operation is over, we will dismantle it. So lots of things that are classified, but the programs and the equipment, hey, it's just satellite equipment on the ground, very mobile, and we've been doing some of these programs for years. Our SNAP program, for example, more than 10 years. I mentioned JAXA, which is really the third picture on the top. You can see ground station towers there that are in Japan, and we've been doing that for 10, 15 plus years. The lower left box, which is what we call high performance transmission technologies. These are really high power amplifiers that are used in electronic warfare jamming amplifiers. It's on, Air Force One as a great example, where, if you're flying over the ocean and you need to communicate, you need to really amplify that signal so it gets from wherever the plane is to, let's say, wherever the ground equipment is. And certainly when you're talking about radar and jamming, our amplifiers are key critical components to some of these larger systems. Finally, one product not to gloss over is the Comet, which is the lower right-hand picture. It may look like just a typical antenna, but this is really troposcatter equipment that's sitting behind that antenna dish, and it literally is the world's smallest troposcatter system. It could be set up within 15 minutes on the ground, enabling transmission from 10, 20 miles to a couple of 100 miles on the ground. This is a product that we just introduced last year, and almost immediately we're getting orders from the U.S. government and tremendous interest around the world. This really is a game changer because it provides a lot of transmission capability without the requirement to use satellite. Over the horizon technology actually bounces the signal off of the sky, not use of satellite. And so it's a real game changer because the end customer doesn't need a satellite. They don't need to arrange for a transponder capacity with a third-party provider. They literally just put the common antenna on the ground, one on the left side, one on the right side, and off they go. And so a real game changer and something that we've developed, for many years, and we finally rolled out the product last year. As I mentioned earlier, things are looking pretty good. We have about 600 million of revenue plus that we're expecting this year, and we have almost $1 billion of what I call visibility to future revenue. 600 million of that is in our backlog already, so almost a year's worth of revenue is in our backlog if you want to simplify things. And then we have contracts in place, not contracts that we're getting, but contracts in place where we just wait for funding, and we don't necessarily include that in our backlog, really, because at the end of the day, it's just a little bit more conservative. But you're adding them up, and the reality is we have about $1 billion worth of revenue visibility from existing contracts. As we talked about on our conference call, in past, probably 40 to 50, sometimes even 60% of any given quarter's revenue is actually booked and shipped in that quarter. So taking a step back, you can see that we have visibility, not just only for the next 6 to 12 months, but probably for 24 to 36 months. Things are looking pretty good. And as long as the economy improves and bookings continue to flow in, we think our revenue chart and our adjusted EBITDA chart will certainly be heading north again. We also have, a proven record of successful acquisitions. You go back to 2015 when we made an acquisition of TCS, which got us into the 911 space. And since then, we've done some tactical acquisitions in the 911 area to really, boost them up, our capabilities. And then even in January of this year, we announced and closed on an acquisition of a high-precision antenna company, which will allow us to participate in this growing LEO market. CGC, you obviously probably haven't heard of the name, but it is a true leader in providing antenna solutions for the LEO and MEO satellite constellations. Great programs, great customers, and again, we think that's really going to jettison some of our growth over the next couple of years. We do have one pending acquisition. It's a small company called UHP Networks, primarily based in Canada. In December of 2020, almost a year since we first announced the acquisition, we've actually announced that we were extending the timeline for us to close and the acquisition of UHP to February 28, 2021. We've been having some very good discussions to kind of figure out a way to close this transaction. We hope to have what I call pretty good news to announce between now and February 28, 2021. And we're really excited about bringing UHP into the Comtech family. It really is a leader in what I would call TDMA technology. And, back in November 2019, when we first announced this acquisition, we said, bar none, that UHP had the best and TDMA technology that we existed in the marketplace. And you could call it groundbreaking, disruptive, and every sort of word that you could possibly think of with a technology. We're looking forward to it. We believe once this acquisition closes, we're going to be able to provide our customers an end-to-end solution, over the next several years, as they would like to have one system in place. And as for those that know us, we have a great product called Heights, which is a network platform that we offer our satellite customers who requires SCPC or high bandwidth. This is much better technology on the lower side. So if you have low data needs, it will allow us to provide customers with a low data transmission requirement, meet their low data requirements, and graduate with them to higher bandwidth requirements for our Heights products whenever they want to. So again, this is a real good acquisition. We're really excited about it. None of this is in our current projections that we've talked about, and I'll just kind of reiterate them on the next page here, I think. back in December, we with COVID as a background and, things still being shaky out there, we still think 610 to 630 as of December is a reasonable number. We gave guidance of $74 to $76 million, just in terms of EBITDA. Just like you, we're sitting here, we're looking at things in the press every day, and we're watching things. But I can tell you, sitting here today, we feel pretty good. We think that we're past the worst of the coronavirus. We're talking to customers with large opportunities that really didn't exist a year ago, 6 months ago even, and we feel pretty good where we're headed. In summary, Comtech, we're really true market leaders. Number one, number two in each of our markets. You can see we're an engineering and technology company, over 400 plus engineers, really good growing markets underlying our products and our future revenues. We've been around for a long time, so we've been through good times, we've been through bad times. And, the management team as a whole has really navigated through this coronavirus pretty well. And, at the end of the day, we feel pretty good and look forward to reporting, good news over the next few quarters and years. With that, that's the end of my prepared remarks. So I guess I will turn it to Joe from Noble if he or anybody else has any other questions.
Thanks, Michael. Really appreciate a very in-depth presentation. Again, this is Joe Gomes, the Noble Analyst on Comtech Telecommunications. We're starting the Q&A session. If you wish to ask a question, please click on the lower right corner of the video window. Michael, I'm going to start with the satellite business. As you mentioned, there's literally been proposed thousands of LEO, MEO satellites to be going up in these huge constellations. So assuming these started to come to fruition, what does that mean? Does each satellite need its own ground station, or is it one ground station for every 10 satellites? How does that benefit Comtech's ground station business?
So I'm going to simplify things. It requires a lot of ground stations. So again, there's no magic formula, Joe. But look, if you have, and I'm going to dumb the answer down here. But if you have one satellite in the sky, right off the bat, you need at least one satellite ground station. But where you need that satellite ground station equipment is for every single customer that would like to communicate directly to that satellite. So in some cases, you could have one satellite, you could have 100 different satellite ground station spots communicating with that. You add another satellite, some of that same ground station equipment using the appropriate antenna, such as our XY antenna, will be able to connect to that second satellite and third satellite. So what's happening here in the LEO side is these very bright billionaires, as I like to refer to them, they're launching hundreds, if not thousands of satellites that are what they call lower Earth. They're closer to the Earth than some of the historical satellites. So the need is to have high tracking capability, very sophisticated software, and you have to have handoff, be able to move from one satellite to the next. That's some of our equipment, such as our Heights platform, some of the stuff that UHP will bring to the table. So it's multiples upon multiples is really what we're talking about. And a lot of the equipment that's out there needs to be upgraded. Some of it needs to be new. Comtech's perspective is we're going to be independent. Some of the systems out there are closed-ended, right? They just want to have proprietary type equipment. So we're not going to provide to everybody. But I think that's a fallacy for some of these customers, because large companies with, again, those are the ones that are going to be using some of this bandwidth. They're going to want to have interoperability amongst many different satellite brand operators. And that's our business. We don't make satellites, so we're independent. We're vendor neutral. We'll work with anybody's satellite, and that's where the customers are pulling the industry into a very broad, independent, vendor neutral type solution over time. So that's where we see the opportunity. You could kind of call us, we're providing the shovels to everybody that's digging the gold, but we feel pretty good that there's an enormous growth opportunity as these satellites get launched. And, there's twofold. There's an initial equipment need when they launch a satellite because you need to communicate that satellite once it gets up in the sky. And then there's a second wave that comes along with it, which is to the actual end customers. So the initial customers need, the initial satellite company needs satellite ground station equipment to communicate with that satellite. And then as they start rolling out their applications or to end customers, whether it be consumers or small businesses, you need to add more satellite ground station equipment, which we think, we're going to be in the business with.
Great. Let's switch gears to the next gen 911 business. I think you guys even made an announcement this morning of another win in Toronto. You seem to be, putting out these press releases on a regular basis of wins, as you were mentioning, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, South Carolina. What is driving your ability to win these contracts over your competition?
Well, there's certainly an undertone of tremendous market demand for upgrading 911 systems. So that's certainly providing the demand that's out there. Why we think we're winning? We think pretty much we have the best technology out there that's being validated by our customers. Again, as you go, some of the historical systems that exist, they're deployed by very large companies, and they're old, and they work like old software works, right? And I don't think, I'm sure everybody has experience somewhere along the line that, you may have a piece of software in shop somewhere that's fulfilling a function that was developed 25 years ago. So it's very difficult to take old software and make it modern. And so what's happening is as these states go to modernize their equipment, they're going out to bid, which is giving us the opportunity for them to see new technology, see new ways of doing things. And, if you remember in 2019, we did a small tuck-on acquisition called Solicom, which literally is just taking market share from our competitors. And, that's what's giving us, we think the growth here and the market shares. We're taking market share from customers because our technology is just a lot better than our competitors. And the other thing which I do tell people, Joe, and again, so you can understand it, look, we're a small company. We're not $50 billion in revenue. And I'll use New York City. I'm not going to compete in New York City against a $50 billion company. I don't sell handheld radios. I don't sell certain equipment that other companies can package it in. But where I do provide better service, clearly, is with smaller customers in the United States. I'm much more. We're much more nimble. We're not a big company. We can do things very specific for the customers that bigger companies just don't want to do or just don't seem to be able to handle it. We have feet on the ground in some of these locations and have developed strong relationships over the years. So again, we're not going to win 100% market share, but we feel pretty good about where we're focusing, and we have the right strategy in place. These contracts take several years to be awarded, and we put a lot of homework. A lot of homework's been done in the last few years, and we think we're seeing some of that benefit today.
Great. And if we look at some of the government solutions business, a lot of that, as you mentioned, goes to for the defense. We have new administration coming in, questions about the size of the defense budget. Now, as I sit here, looking at the defense budget, there is a big change or shift in priorities to a lot of digitization products for the military, as opposed to, let's say, big iron, another battleship or another aircraft carrier. I mean, what is your feelings or your thoughts on the new administration and defense budget and where it could be going and hopefully benefiting Comtech?
Well, it's a good question, Joe. I think, since I've been with the company since 2002, I think the things that I've seen during political presidential changeovers or administration changeovers is it's generally been neutral to us, with the exception of, let's say, war. War is a different category, but you have war, generally, the sky's the limit in terms of, revenue. Here, we're not in that type of political environment or around the world, but you have a tremendous need, and we've had it for several years, for upgrades to communication to transmit that digital data that you're talking about. So I think for us, the new administration that's scheduled to take office tomorrow, we think will be actually beneficial to us, simply because for the last 4 years, the prior administration really hasn't focused on states, if you will, and I mean by like embassy. Around the world, there's not been a lot of activity overseas in terms of political influence by the U.S. government, and here it's likely that the equipment that existed 4 years ago, which was already 10 years old, is now 15 years old. So some of that stuff, I think, will get upgraded, and I think one thing that's clear is the U.S. government is looking to an infrastructure bill to generate spending. And again, as a company that's domiciled primarily in the United States with our manufacturing facilities, we think we're going to pick up our fair share of infrastructure spending. And infrastructure spending will certainly be used for new communication equipment, including our 911 stuff. So 911 is it's a win-win, right? Consumers, citizens will get upgraded 911 systems. Each state, we'll be able to get access to federal money, and our view is Comtech should get some of that access for the infrastructure bill. Take some time, but we think that those trends bode well for us in this new administration.
Great. We got about 2 minutes, so I'm going to ask one more question for a quick answer. This past fall, you guys announced $100 million stock buyback. What's your thoughts on that at this point in time?
Yeah, I think, Joe, I summarize it this way. When we announced the $100 million buyback, we told people, and we'll stick by our statement, you'll probably see us be opportunistic about buying stock. We do think our stock is undervalued, even at today's prices at $22. If you look back in the stock chart in January of 2020, we were at $35, $36 a share. It's the same company. Albeit we got, a little bit impacted by COVID in the last 7 months, 8 months. We've been impacted by an acquisition that we announced and then we terminated. So, that certainly caused the stock to go down to lower levels. But if you look at the trend over the last 6 months or so, you can see we were as low as, 14 and change, 13 and change. And I think the stock market, that's what you guys get paid for, is the market's starting to realize Comtech is a growing company. And so the growth trends that existed in January when we were $30+ stock, it's the same growth trends now. And now the trajectory is headed backward, headed back up. So all in all, we'll be opportunistic about our stock buybacks because we do think the stock is undervalued.
Great. Michael, this has been fantastic. I want to thank both of you, Michaels, for presenting here at NobleCon17, taking the time. We really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing how the 2021 unfolds, and good luck going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe, for hosting us. Have a good day. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.